What's going on, boys? Welcome back to the stream. This is a part of our essentially daily stream where we stream every day during the week and on weekends on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So welcome back. Yesterday we missed a stream. I apologize for that. I missed the stream because I ended up getting home pretty late yesterday, so I missed it. But we are back with the stream today, and since the last time we spoke, which was on Tuesday, we had some more news come out. So just give me a moment to get everything set up here, and then we'll dive right into it. Do this. Boom. Alrighty, that's set. Let's get this set up. Sorry, boys. All right. So, anyway, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about was something that just came out today, I believe, and it was fight news. So we have a co-main event official for UFC Paris. It's BSD versus Mauricio Ruffy. This is a really, really good fight. A really, really good fight. Why they cut to Buday 7-1 in the UFC? Yeah, that was a weird one. That was a weird one. He has a really good record in the UFC, obviously 7-1. I don't think his last performance was good at all, personally. But regardless, he has a very successful record in the UFC. The UFC has certainly cut guys in the past that had great records. But yeah, this one was a little bit of a weird one, especially considering that there's really no prospects or really no talent at the heavyweight division. You would think they would keep a guy like this, but I don't know. I guess from their perspective, his last performance the other week was just not impressive. I know he won the fight, but it was just not impressive at all. So maybe that's why they cut him. I don't know. But it was weird to see them cut a guy with a 7-1 record in the UFC. But yeah, so I guess that's what happened there. By the way, welcome to the stream, Joshua. So this is the co-main event for the Paris card, Ruffy and BSD. This is actually going to be a very, very good fight in my opinion. Very high-paced, action-packed, and this is kind of a trend. On this card, the main event is already Imavov and Caio Borralho, so it's France versus the Fighting Nerds for both the co-main event and the main event. So that'll be fun. That'll add an extra wrinkle to the card itself, but in terms of this fight, I think it's a really good one. It's definitely a test for Ruffy, I believe. It's also a test for BSD. It's going to be somewhat of the reckless style from BSD going up against the very well calculated, but also at the same time, relatively untested style of Mauricio Ruffy. So I'm really excited for it. I think both of these guys can exploit weaknesses in the other guy's game. As I said, for BSD, he's a little bit reckless out there, or maybe very reckless out there. And I do believe he can get caught coming in with a big right hand. And for Ruffy, although he has shown a decent ability to stop takedowns, it'll be interesting to see how he's able to stop takedowns versus a guy like BSD, who has the physicality he does, the wrestling pedigree that he does. So yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how not only how he's able to stop takedowns if he is, but also how his cardio is going to stand up over a full 3 rounds. So I personally think it's an amazing fight. I'm very happy to see. I am definitely leaning with Ruffy in this one, but should be a really fun one. So that's the first thing that we got that came out. Good main fights for France for sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the France card looks to be pretty good. I don't remember what the rest of the card was, but I know the top 2 fights are going to be fun. They have meaning to them. They're going to be fun fights, and I'm definitely excited to see what they end up doing. Anyways, so in terms of news, yeah, it's been a little bit slow. That's really all the news that we have. But obviously, outside of that, it is fight week for the Apex card. I don't know how many people are that excited about it, but I will say there are definitely a couple fights in this card that I think will be fun and I think are probably worth watching. The main event, we'll see what happens against Tyra and Hong Sung Park. I think it's an interesting one, but we'll see how it pans out. Co-main and Chris Duncan versus Rebetsky. I think that's a fun fight, probably a pretty high action, high pace fight. Elvis Brenner versus Ribovic. I think that has a chance to be fight of the night. That should be a really good one. It probably should be in an arena or something, in UFC Paris or something like that. But they decide to put in the Apex. But regardless, it's a really, really good and really fun fight. Danny Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. That's going to be fun. Vallejos is a really good prospect. Someone with great power, usually puts on really exciting performances. So it'll be interesting to see how he pans out in this fight. And I am expecting a win for him. Austin Bashi, another prospect, is fighting this weekend. So we'll see what he's able to do in this fight. And there's a couple other fights that I think are solid, sprinkled throughout the card. But those are the main fights that I'm personally excited about, and I'm personally going to be watching. I'll probably end up watching most of the card, but those fights specifically are the fights that I'm most excited about. So that's what we have for this upcoming weekend. In terms of bets, I didn't really see much value. Usually I like to give out free bets, free picks, whatever, for the upcoming card that week. But unfortunately for this week, I really didn't see much. Most of those prospects that I mentioned, before, most of them are very heavy favorites. And I think a lot of those guys are actually really good fighters. Like Austin Bashi, I believe he's a good fighter. Kevin Vallejos, I definitely think he's a good fighter. Ribovic, I think he's a good fighter. Rebetsky, I think he's a solid fighter, and even Tetsura Taira, I think is a good fighter. So all those guys that I mentioned are huge favorites, but I think rightfully so. I really don't see much value on this card at all, so I will most likely be staying away from this card. So that's what I have. But the other thing that I wanted to hop into was a tier list. So let's get into it right now. So this tier list is going to be the best prospects in the UFC. I believe we did this tier list a while ago. I'm not 100% sure if we did it or not, but I believe we might have done it. But at this point, we're doing an updated tier list with new guys in the list, and we have also the knowledge of some of these guys fighting a couple times. So maybe we can list them more accurately or rate them more accurately. So first we have Felipe Lima. Felipe is definitely a good fighter. He does a pretty good job at doing a lot of things out there. He has good grappling, he has good striking, but obviously in his last fight, he ended up taking a real not real. I was going to say relatively close, but actually wasn't. He ended up taking a not so close decision loss to Peyton Talbot. So in my opinion, Felipe Lima goes in. I think he goes in like the bottom half of B tier. That's how I see him. I think he has a lot of good skills, but maybe the physicality is not exactly there for Felipe. And that's personally where I see him at this point. Probably lower half of B tier. Next, we have Alexandre Alexandre Taporia, Ilya Taporia's brother, of course. And we've only seen him a couple of times, but I believe this guy is very, very good. In my opinion, he's probably going to be an A tier, maybe lower half of A tier at this point, but I see him in A tier just because his wrestling has proven to be very good in the couple times that we've seen him thus far in the UFC. His head movement on the feet appears to be pretty good. His boxing, of course, is nowhere near Ilya's, but his boxing is solid. As I said, he does a good job of moving his head, getting his head off center line, not taking too many shots, and landing some big shots of his own. And it does seem like he has pretty good power. Maybe, obviously, as I said, not the same as Taporia, but Ilya, I should say, but pretty good power for Alexandre. So I'm definitely excited to see what this guy is able to do going forward. I think he is going to be a very, very good prospect, and we shall see. Next, we have Antiba. So this is a guy who hasn't been tested that much. I believe he had 2 fights in the UFC thus far against guys who I don't consider to be all that great, to be honest. But in those fights, Antiba looked really impressive. He showed off his power, he showed off his striking, he showed off his technical ability, and as I said, even though he didn't go up against the best opponents, I do believe he still did show a lot of talent out there. So in my opinion, I believe he's an A tier. And another guy that I'm certainly looking forward to, and I think could be a guy who could be a legitimate contender one day. Maybe not right now, maybe not next year, but one day I believe he certainly could get to that point. Next, we have Bo Nickel. So Bo Nickel is honestly an interesting one for me. I know a lot of fans don't like Bo Nickel, but he does honestly have decent wrestling. He was able to take down RDR for a point in that fight. Some of his other performances were lackluster, to say the least, but he does have good wrestling. I mean, I will say that. So in my opinion, he's probably upper half of C tier. Reason being is on the feet, he doesn't really have much. He has decent power, I would assume, but on the feet, his striking really just isn't there. And I do believe for the weight class that he fights at, his wrestling is certainly good, but it's not nearly as effective as it could be, maybe if you move down a weight class. So at this point, considering the weight class that he's fighting at, I would consider Bo Nickel to be probably the higher tier of C class. And the reason why I feel that way is because he does do certain things pretty well out there. So that's where I would personally have Bo Nickel. Next, we have Bashi. I think for Bashi's fighting this weekend, as I mentioned, I think Bashi's probably in B tier. He does a lot of good things as well. Maybe B tier ahead of Felipe. He does a lot of good things well. C-Rod, the prospect destroyer, ended up beating him in his last fight. We'll see how he comes out after that loss in his next fight this weekend against a guy who's much lower level of competition, in my opinion. But still, we'll see how Bashi comes back from the loss. But, he definitely does do some good things out there. His wrestling is solid. On the feet, he does some good things. And I think there is a potential that he could be decent in the future. So for me, Bashi would probably be in B tier. Next, we have Jacob Smith. Jacob Smith is also an interesting one to me just because he does a lot of things well. His wrestling is good. On the feet, he's not the most technical guy in the world, to say the least, but he has a lot of power, a lot of speed. So I do think he does good things, and I do think he has a chance to be decent. The only problem is in his last fight, he really went all out to get the finish early, wasn't able to get it, and he gassed out relatively quickly. So maybe that's a one-off bad performance, but you definitely don't love to see that, especially early on for a guy like Jacob Smith. Because at this point, I think what the UFC is doing with prospects that they personally think are really good is they're kind of moving them on a little bit slowly. And I think we're seeing that for a lot of the guys that I already have on the list. And for Jacob Smith, they're doing that for him as well. And he didn't really pass his last test with flying colors. He won the fight, but he definitely gassed out relatively quickly, which is something you don't love to see. Dig, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. BSC got over. Yeah, I don't know what the line is going to be. We'll see. I would be surprised if he wasn't a favorite. I'm almost positive that Ruffy's going to be a favorite, but it'll be interesting to see. For BSD, I was also personally pretty high on him, and then he ended up losing to Poirier. But in that Poirier fight, he did have success in the first round. But after that Poirier fight, things still didn't go all that well for BSD. So we'll see how the fight pans out. I certainly would lean with Ruffy in this one, but at the same time, I do think BSD does do some things pretty well, like wrestle, being super physical. So we'll see. But I agree, most likely Ruffy will win the fight. But I'm excited about it. Fun fight. But anyway, so for Jacob Smith, I'd probably put him in. Honestly, I'd probably put him in C tier ahead of Bo Nickel, maybe, just because he has shown an ability to do things pretty well. I think he's fighting at the correct weight class. He's proven to be pretty physical, hits really hard, really fast. His wrestling is solid, and I think he does do a lot of good things out there. So next we have Kevin Vallejos. I believe he's very, very good. So I'd probably put him in B tier, right in front of Bashi and in front of Lima. I think he's a little bit behind guys like Pantoja and Antiba, but not too far behind. I do think he's very good. His boxing is solid. His power is legit. He does a lot of really good things out there. He had he lost a fight, but I guess he had a relatively closest fight that Gene Silva has had at this point, although I believe he did get finished, but still, it was relatively close before that happened. Or maybe it didn't get finished. I don't remember, but it was relatively close. And ever since then, he's done nothing but win. So definitely pretty high on him. And also, he's fighting this weekend. This weekend is honestly a pretty good card for prospects. So definitely be looking out for Bashi, Vallejos. Who else is on the card? Maybe it's just those two guys. Ribovich is on the card as well, I believe, this week. So yeah, a lot of prospects this weekend. Anyways, so we have Andre Lima next. So this might be a controversial one, but in my opinion, I think Andre Lima is an A tier ahead of a lot of these other guys. Andre does a lot of different things really well, and I've been high on this guy for a while. I think out of these prospects, he might honestly be the least known guy out of all of them, just because he always fights in the Apex. But I do believe Andre Lima's a really good fighter. He came into the UFC or really into MMA with a kickboxing background, and on the feet, he does a lot of things very well. It appears he has pretty good power. It appears he's pretty physical, alongside it with being really technical. Great kicks, pretty solid boxing even as well. But the one thing that really separates him, and the one reason why I have him in A tier, is he's also shown an ability recently to wrestle, not only stop takedowns, but also offensively wrestle, as his last performance, I believe, was a submission. So he's showing versatility to his game. And as I said before, on the feet, this guy is really good. He has a kickboxing background, and Andre Lima is a guy, in my opinion, is a really, really good fighter. Next, we have Loner Kavanaugh. This is one of those guys I also think is very, very good. In my opinion, I would probably have him here, maybe right behind Alexandre Pantoja. I keep saying that. Alexandre Taporia. He's really good. He does a lot of good things. I actually just made a video about him today that'll be coming out the week of UFC Shanghai. But he does a lot of really good things out there. On the feet, he's great. On the ground, he's great. He can offensively wrestle. He can defensively wrestle. There's a lot of good things that that Loner Kavanaugh does out there, and I believe he's going to be very, very good at that flyweight division, and definitely a legitimate contender in the near future. And we'll see if he's able to become a champion. I do believe there is a chance that he could. Next, we have Jose Ochoa. Ochoa is a good fighter. Obviously, he came off a loss in his last fight. But he went up against a really good fighter, and it was a pretty big step up in competition for him. But what Ochoa does well out there is he's very dangerous on the feet, very powerful for the flyweight division. And on the ground, he's not going to offensively grapple all that much, but he does a pretty good job at defensively wrestling, as we saw in his last performance. Yes, he did get taken down and held down in the third round, but he fought a really good wrestler, and he did a good job at stopping takedowns and getting right back up for the majority of that fight. So I do believe Ochoa is pretty good. I would probably put Ochoa maybe here. That's probably where I put him in B tier, ahead of Bashi, ahead of Felipe Lima, but behind Vejos. Loner's so slick. He could evolve into a great fighter. I do agree with you, Dig. I definitely do agree with you. We'll see what he does. Definitely a decent step up in competition for him at UFC Shanghai versus Charles Johnson. But I do agree with you. I think he's going to beat Charles. I think he's going to then fight a ranked guy, get into the rankings. And I would be surprised, honestly, if he doesn't go far. I do believe he does a lot of really good things, both on the feet as well as on the ground. He has great versatility for sure. And his speed is also very, very good. Next, we have Peyton Talbot. Now, Peyton Talbot's a little bit different than some of these other guys. I guess Bo Nickel can be in a similar spot to Peyton Talbot. But for Peyton Talbot, I still consider him to be a prospect, but he's had a lot more experience than some of these other guys, and he's gotten higher step up in competition than some of these other guys. So for Peyton Talbot, I would probably put him in B tier ahead of Vejos. So that might be controversial. Or maybe he should be behind Vejos. But the reason why I put him here is because he did take a step back. He did have a really bad performance, not his last fight, but the fight before that. But at the same time, I think he's put on a lot of good performances. He's shown what he can do out there, and that strike. His striking is really good. His physicality is honestly next level for the bantamweight division. Pretty fast as well, honestly, for the bantamweight division. Very big for the bantamweight division, honestly. And he does a good job at landing big shots, knocking guys out, getting finishes. And in his last fight, he did a really good job. His last fight, actually, against Felipe Lima, he did a really good job at showing an improvement in terms of his grappling. As he stopped a lot of takedowns on the ground, he was able to scramble really effectively, get back up. And I think based upon that improvement on the ground, I do believe that Peyton Talbot is kind of back on track to where some people thought he could go originally. And I do still think he's going to be a really good fighter. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he becomes a legitimate championship contender. But of course, at this point, he is a long way out from that. His most recent win was Felipe Lima, who's also a prospect at this point. So we'll see where Peyton Talbot can go. But I'm personally pretty high on him still, even after that performance. And I do believe that that he's going to be good. But next, we have Rahul Rosas. So Rahul also has a loss similar to some of these other prospects, but he has shown a pretty good ability to grapple. That's really his main bread and butter. On the feet, he had a couple fights where he struck on the feet, looked to be pretty physical, has a finish on his record, a TKO finish on his record. But for him, I think he's kind of like a little bit of a one-trick pony. You know, he has grappling, and which is definitely very good, but he has been stopped in the past. And on the feet, he does some things well. He is pretty physical, but not amazing. So in my opinion, at this point, he's probably in B tier behind some of these other guys. And D2000. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. They got rid of it. I'm not watching this sport anymore. Unreal. Yeah. The Buday thing was kind of interesting, as Joshua was talking about before. He is 7-1 in the UFC. Maybe not amazing performances or very fan friendly performances, but it is weird to cut somebody who's 7-1 within your company. So I don't know where he goes from here. If he signs with the PFL, I wouldn't be surprised. But it is definitely weird to see them cut a guy who had that much success in the UFC. But as I was talking to Joshua before about it, the UFC certainly has cut a bunch of guys in the past that had winning records or really good records in the UFC. So I guess this is just another guy added to the list of fighters that have great records but get cut by the UFC. But yeah, so next we have Shamil Gaziev, clear S tier. No, I'm kidding. But for Shamil Gaziev, he's probably D tier for me personally. I guess he has done some decent things in certain fights with a nice jab, right hand. But in my opinion, even for heavyweight standards, I don't personally think he's all that good. He doesn't have that much power. His gas tank is not there at all. Honestly, we've seen him gas out when he fought Rosenstrike. His grappling's not amazing. He doesn't really do anything amazing. And on top of all that, as I said, he's not that physical and he's not even that athletic. So in my opinion, I don't really think Shamil Gaziev is going to be that good, although the memes are certainly tremendous. Next, all right. Next, we have Shara. I'd probably put Shara in D tier as well, but probably ahead of Shamil Gaziev. For Shara, I mean, he had some fun and impressive performances in the UFC thus far. I believe he has like a 5-1 or something like that. Pretty good record in the UFC. But most of those guys, really all the guys that he's beat thus far, are cans. And in a lot of those fights, even when he fought Marc-Andre Barrios in his last fight, who I personally think is a can at this point, he had some trouble. In his last fight, he broke his nose. In some of his other performances, he took some big shots when he was in close boxing range. So I personally don't think Shara is that great. He does one thing pretty well, and that's kick. But outside of his kicking game his game is just not that great, to be honest. His boxing is really non-existent. His boxing defense is not great. I mean, he has one eye, so I guess you can't really blame him, but still, it's not great. His grappling is really not great, which is odd because he is from Dagestan, but still, his grappling is not great. I kind of feel like he's a one-trick pony, and I have mentioned this a lot in the past, but I feel like guys whose kicking is the main part of their striking game, it's very easy to exploit those guys. I mean, obviously easier said than done, but still, for these guys that are really good, great strikers and really good fighters in the UFC, if you're able to get past that kicking range and you're able to get on the inside, guys like Shara or maybe some other examples as well, if you're able to get on that inside boxing range, you could land big shots, hurt them, and find finishes. And I think that's exactly what we saw from Marc-Andre Barrios when he went up against Shara, alongside with some other examples as well. Pencil shaving, what's going on, bro? Welcome to the stream. But yeah, so I personally would consider him to be in D tier. Next, we have Taliesin Teixeira. So I know Taliesin got knocked out in 35 seconds by Derek Lewis, but Derek Lewis is live against anybody. I really believe that. I've been jokingly, but honestly not jokingly at the same time, felt like Derek Lewis may be the toughest fight for Tom Aspinall at this point. Not because he's the most talented, certainly not, but the fact that Tom could be winning the majority of the fight, and then then Derek Lewis can land one big shot and knock out Tom Aspinall. Obviously, as I said, I think that's like a 1% chance or maybe a 5% chance, but still, Derek Lewis is always dangerous and he's always going to have the power. So I think the fact that Taliesin lost to Derek Lewis, personally, I know maybe I got a lot of hate for picking Taliesin over Derek Lewis, but personally, I don't think I'm jumping off the Taliesin Teixeira bandwagon yet. I still think he could be decent. I think he has good physical skills, and he's not the most or physical traits I should say. He's not the most technical guy in the world. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but I don't think anybody really is at the heavyweight division outside of maybe Tom Aspinall or Cyril Gane. But most other guys at the heavyweight division aren't really all that physical. So that's why I think Taliesin could still be successful at that weight class. So for me, I'd probably have Taliesin in C tier, ahead of Jacob Smith and ahead of Bo Nickel. I still think he could be decent. I wouldn't be surprised if he's, I don't know, let's say a top 8 ranked guy at the heavyweight division, maybe even a little bit better, but we'll see what happens for him. Now, next, I guess this is also a little bit different for Ribovic. I don't know if people would consider him a prospect at this point. Probably most people would. But for Ribovic, I personally think this guy is going to be very, very good. So I'd probably put him in B tier, maybe ahead of Ochoa, ahead of Rosas, Bauchi, and Felipe. The reason why I think I just realized I have nobody in S tier. I might have to readjust this. I'm happy how all this looks, but nobody's in S tier. But anyways, so for Ribovic, the reason why I think he's pretty good is I really like his inside boxing. I think he does a good job at putting punches together in combination. He hits pretty hard. I think we've seen that in a couple of his fights. And also, he's just willing to go for it. He takes a lot of big shots. Also, we've seen that in a couple of his fights, but he just continuously pushes forward, puts himself in the action until he's able to find finishes or find decision victories. And I'm personally very high on Ribovic. I think he's going to be very good. So that's what I have. That's what I have for the tier list at this point. If you guys have any other guys I should add to the list, be sure to let me know, and I might need to readjust this because I have no S tier, guys. Can you make a video? Oh, that's not bad. I could do that. Fucking up. I could do that. Pencil shavings. I'll write that down. Let me write that down. All right. Thanks for the idea, by the way. And then Joshua says Terence Finney, S tier all day. All right, I'll add Terence Finney. What do I want to do? Let's see. Let's add the GOAT to the list. Is there anybody else that I missed out of the prospects by chance? Let me just do this. Bear with me for a second, boys. Let's add Finney in. All right, so Finney, if it'll load in. There we go. So Finney, obviously S tier, insane wrestling, is able to hold guys down. But now, if we're being honest, I would probably have Finney like here, maybe. Honestly, like maybe the lowest on the list. Maybe he's better than Shamil Gaziev. I'm also not high on Shamil Gaziev at all. But for the benefit of the doubt, because Finney's a legend and he does show a pretty good ability to wrestle and hold guys down, I'll put him ahead of Gaziev. Do you think Ilya's brother will be good? Yeah, I do. I really do. I think he's shown a lot of good skills. I think in terms of his physicality, he's shown that it's not as good as Topuria or Ilya, but it still is probably pretty good. I think he hits very hard. I think his head movement is pretty good. On the feet, he's shown some pretty good things. He's not nearly as technical as Ilya is, but still, he has shown a pretty good ability to stay technical on the feet, land big shots, be very successful on the feet, and he's shown good things there. And then outside of that, he has also shown a pretty good ability to wrestle. So I personally think Alexandre is going to be very, very good. On this list, I have him the highest. And yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I do personally think he's going to be really good. Wellmaker, even though he's 32. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll add him. Yeah, I can't spell. We get it. We'll add this one. All right, let's add him to this list. If I can find him. There we go. So by the way, is there any lag on this stream? I feel like my computer's like lagging a bit here. Hopefully everything's all right. Just bear with me for these first few weeks or few months until I'm able to upgrade here. I know there's occasions where my computer's lagging, but all right. So for Malcolm Wellmaker, the thing is he's like relatively untested, but in the few fights that we have seen him, he has shown a couple of things, that he's able to set up big shots and he has a ridiculous amount of power. Those are the couple things that we saw from him. but he is at the same time relatively untested. So I'd probably say, because we haven't seen him tested that much, I'd probably put him here though, still in B tier. I think he has shown enough that I think he's probably going to be pretty good. But we'll see. We'll see how he's able to do in a very, very good division. So yeah, this is how I have everything. If I had to make some adjustments because I actually have no one in S tier, I think I'd put Taporia in S tier. Maybe I'll just do this. Yeah, Taporia S tier, everything else the same. This is probably how I would have my list. I think it's fair for Loner Kavanaugh and all these other guys. It's not that I don't think they're going to be really good or I don't think they can be championship contenders, because I do think Loner Kavanaugh is one of those guys that could certainly be alongside with other guys. But the reason why I have Taporia a little bit higher is just because from him, I feel like we've seen great physicality from him alongside with great skills. Now for Loner, he has shown decent power in some of his fights, and for Antiba, he's certainly shown a lot of power in a lot of his fights, in all of his fights, honestly. But I just feel like Taporia is a little bit more well-rounded at this point than maybe some other guys. Masumento, that's a good one. All right, Matsu. Solid fighter. What picture should we take here, boys? I'll take this one. Throw a Gene. Now let me find him. All right. So Nascimento, he's a good fighter. Did he just lose to who did he just lose to? Let's see. Was it to Rob Font? That's what I thought it was. Yeah, it's a close fight. I remember some people thought Massimento won. It was a really close one. I think he could have won either way. But outside of the Rob Font fight, he's been successful in the UFC. I personally think he's pretty good. Maybe I would have him. I'd probably have him like here. Oh my god. I apologize, boys. My computer's glitching out. All right, here we go. Yeah, I'd probably have him here in B tier. He's shown some good things both on the feet as well as on the ground. But at the same time, he did lose to Rob Font, and Rob Font is a decent fighter. He has a good ability on the feet. He has a good ability to throw jabs and right straights, but he's not an amazing fighter at the same time. So I think that loss from Massimento is not amazing, but it's not the worst thing in the world. We'll see what adjustments he's able to make after that fight and where he's able to make improvements. So yeah, I'd probably put him in B tier personally. I think he's pretty solid though. So we'll see. As I said, a lot of these prospects that I have on this list are going to be fighting this weekend. So we'll see a lot of guys, and that'll be exciting. But this is how I have my list at this point. Just going through it again. Alexandre Pantoja oh my God, 12th time I've done that. Alexandre Taporia. In S tier, I think he just does a lot of things very well, both on the feet and on the ground. And he's very physical, hits really hard, has great wrestling, very strong in the wrestling. Loner Kavanaugh, Antiba, and Lima. All in A tier. I think all these guys have a real chance to be a top contender, championship contenders. And I wouldn't be surprised if any one of these three guys did become champions and before their careers all said and done. So I think they're all very good. And then everybody here in B tier, I also think they're very good. And I also think they could be championship contenders, but I'm not as confident as some of the guys ahead of them. But most of these guys are honestly, really all these guys in B tier, I think are legitimate contenders, guys that will be in the rankings, guys that will be relatively successful in the rankings. And who knows, maybe one of these guys from this list can become a number one ranked guy or a championship contender or a champion. We'll see how it goes. In C tier, these are fighters that are good. I think have the ability or possibility of becoming good and maybe cracking into the ranking, most likely cracking into the rankings and having some success, but I'm not nearly as confident as any of the guys ahead of them. And then D tier, I think these guys are legitimately not so great fighters. I think they're kind of guys that could have success, could be can crushers like Shara has done thus far throughout his UFC career. But not amazing fighters. Definitely have a lot of glaring holes in their game. Don't do a lot of things amazing out there. So that's kind of how I have these classes or these tiers set up. So I'm pretty happy with this list. Feel free to let me know in chat if you disagree with the list at all, or if some guy is too high, too low, or whatever. But this is what I have at this point, and I like it. I think I like it at this point. But yeah, so outside of the tier list, um, not much, honestly. Yeah, so we're kind of just waiting for this weekend. We'll see how the card pans out, and then for next week, it's another Apex card, unfortunately. But the main event I think is a little bit better next week than it is this week. Roman Dolidze versus Fluffy Hernandez. I do think that Fluffy is going to win the fight in the end, but it's an interesting fight. And I do think it's going to be a very high action, high pace fight. Oh, Juice Man, we got a fellow Juice. I clicked these names. Pressure on. So all right, so no, so I'm a opinionative MMA channel. I do live streams every single day, essentially every day during the week, on weekends, on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we talk about MMA topics, whatever news just came out, and we just have fun on here, talk. And then my videos, I come out with videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week. Just making random videos about MMA topics that are happening that week, or just general MMA topics. So that's kind of what I do here on Juicy MMA, Juice Man. but yeah. So yeah, if you enjoy MMA, feel free to subscribe. JK, you're good. I sub. Thanks, Brad. I really appreciate that. But yeah, we do this live stream a whole bunch, essentially every day, as I said. So yeah, so for the next Apex card, we have Dolidze and Fluffy. So that'll be interesting. And then Steve Erceg is fighting. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Ruffy sleeps him. Most likely, I think most likely. BSD is certainly a guy who's has good wrestling for sure. But he does tend to run into shots, and I think we saw that against Dustin Poirier. In that Dustin fight, I guess he also kind of gassed out. But he does kind of run into shots. He's very, very aggressive. And I do believe a style that Ruffy has might actually be a pretty good style to counter some of that aggression and land some big shots. So I do agree that Ruffy's most likely going to finish him, most likely going to find a big counter shot and TKO him. But at the same time, I do still think that BSD can test Ruffy in certain ways. I think he can test his gas tank. I think he can test his takedown defense. And I do believe he does, some pretty good things out there. I know at this point, a lot of people are down on BSD, but I personally still think he does some things good out there. He's super physical. His wrestling's great. So we'll see how it goes, but I agree. Most likely, Ruffy sleeps him. Shamila Govs beat the fuck out of Buday. Well, I guess we can't see it anymore. Beat the fuck out. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, Buday has been cut from the UFC after a pretty good record. But yeah, I guess their thinking was, he just hasn't really put on a lot of fun performances. So that's that. But for Shamil Gaziev, obviously he's going to be champ. He's the GOAT, so UFC is holding on to him. It is kind of funny they cut Rosa Strike, who beat him, but they kept Shamil. But Shamil's the GOAT, so we'll let it slide. Ode knocks Erceg out. This one I actually completely disagree with. I think Erceg is the better striker. I know he got knocked out by KKF, but I think this is too big of an overcorrection. We'll see what the odds are. But, he lost to some of the best. He lost to Pantoja. He lost to KKF. And he lost to Moreno. But for Moreno and KKF, for Moreno and Pantoja, those are two of the best guys in the division right now, and two of the best guys ever. Not number 1 and 2, but some of the best guys ever at the 125-pound division. So I think the level of competition was just really high. So going from fighting Brandon Moreno in your last fight to fighting an unranked Ode Osborne is a huge overcorrection. And I just think Erceg is just kind of better everywhere. Ode is very explosive. He hits really hard. And as I said, Erceg was knocked out not too long ago by KKF. So he does need to worry about the power and explosion of Ode, but at the same time, I just think Erceg is honestly better everywhere. And the feet, he's more technical. He can wrestle him if he wants to. But yeah, that's kind of how I see the fight going. Joel Alvarez would have finished Benoit. Yeah, maybe. There's a decent chance. I'm a little bit higher on BSD than maybe some other guys are, but I definitely would have leaned with Joel Alvarez. But at this point, I think he wasn't able to make weight. That's why the fight was off, and I believe he's moving up to 170 at this point. Alvarez is. I mean, he was huge for 155, so I don't blame him for having trouble cutting down or cutting all the way down to 155. So. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that fight, but we'll see what Joel does at 170. 305, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Don't want to get off topic here, but real quick, Silva or Lopez. I think Silva's going to win. I'm actually relatively confident in that because the thing with Lopez is I think he is a good fighter. But a reason for why he's had as much success in this division as he's had is because he's just more physical than all of his opponents. When you look at his wins in the UFC, mostly what he does is he blitzes his opponents, throws a bunch of shots, and eventually lands one big one, and then he's able to find a finish. We've seen that in most of his fights. And even against Volkanovski, he was significantly more physical than Volkanovski was, even dropped Volk in that fight, even though he kind of got outclassed for the most part. But if you go into this fight between him and Gene Silva, Gene is also ridiculously physical. He can take a shot very well, and he also hits extremely hard. So I think the danger in this fight is going to be higher for Lopez than it is in most fights. And also outside of Gene Silva being able to match the physicality of Diego Lopez, I also think Gene is significantly more technical than Diego is. I think he'll be able to angle change effectively, counter some of those blitzes that Diego goes for. And even if he has Diego backing up, which I believe he probably will for a decent part of this fight, at that point, I think he can really go to work with leg kicks, jabs, right hands, stance switches. Gene Silva is just a very, very technical striker. I know sometimes it looks weird out there when he's, joking around or whatever, but throughout like all of his trolling or whatever, he's very technical. And of course, alongside with that, he has a lot of power. So I'm actually very confident that Gene Silva is going to win, but we'll see. I'm going Silva by KO round 2. Yeah, I agree. I could see that. I mean, the one thing I guess I will say is Lopez has shown an amazing chin. Absolutely amazing. So we'll see how that holds up in this fight. But at the same time, Gene hits really hard, and I think he's going to hit Lopez quite a bit. So, yeah, round 2 KO for Silva. I can certainly see that. Everybody trying to glitch. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think John Jones has pretty good IQ out there, but yeah, I guess. Does Rogan or Shaw versus I don't know. I feel like Shaw might, owe something to Rogan. I think Rogan might have saved him low key. Because he kind of was just slower than everybody else, taking a lot of shots, taking a lot of punishment. So yeah. Gene would put Volk in another dimension. Yeah, it's unfortunate because I love Volkanovski, but I do agree with you. Personally, how I want things to play out, I guess actually this is not going to happen, but initially how I wanted things to play out was Volkanovski to go up against Movsar of Loyev, and I actually think that's a decent fight for Volk, just because Movsar is not all that physical. He doesn't hit that hard, and at this point, I think Volkanovski is arguably like the most skilled guy in the UFC. So the thing that he's really going to struggle with at this point is guys that hit really hard and are super athletic. And Movsar's not really that guy. So I wanted it to be Movsar versus Volk. Volk beats Movsar, which is a big if, but I do personally think there's a good chance that Volk could beat him. And then after that, I would like him to retire. That's kind of what I wanted to happen. But obviously Movsar is out of his fight, and I personally think it's going to be Aaron Pico versus Volkanovski. So we'll see how that fight goes. I'm assuming Pico's going to win in his next fight, and then I'm saying he's going to fight Volk after that. But that's what I would like to see. We'll see if Volk is able to beat Pico. I'm not sure. That's a tough fight, but we'll see. And then if Volk somehow does beat Pico, then I would like him to retire. I really don't want to see Volkanovski go up against Gene Silva. I think Gene is too technical, and most importantly, hits too hard. So yeah, I personally don't want to see that. Tyler vs. Parks much trash. It was incredible time. Yeah, it's not great. And on top of that, it is in the Apex. So it's not amazing, but I guess there's a few fights that are somewhat interesting because there's some prospects in the card. But yeah, for the most part, it's not a great card. What's going on, brother? Thank you, thank you. Welcome to the stream. Gene Wood and Volk, yeah. I agree. I love Volk, but I agree. The difference in finishing ability is too much. I agree. Yeah, I talk about this a lot, but physicality is huge. And when you have one guy on one side in Gene Silva that can land one big shot and finish Volk, and you have another guy on the other side in Volk that can land a bunch of shots on Gene Silva and not find a finish, I think it's just very difficult. It's very difficult for one guy to be perfect for 5 rounds as opposed to a guy that could just land one big shot and find a finish. So tough fight for Volk. I do agree. Topuria is more skilled than Volk. I think there's an argument. I mean, yeah, he might be. But there's an argument. It's at the very least close. But I think the reason why Topuria was able to KO Volk, obviously in part because he's very skilled. Topuria is one of my favorite fighters, to be honest. So nothing against him. He's very, very skilled. But I think the reason why he was able to KO Volk is because of the physicality. He just hits way too hard. And for as good as Volk can be skill-wise, he just doesn't have that finishing ability, not even close. But, you know, that's why Topuria is, in my opinion, the best fighter in the UFC at this point, just because he's very skilled, obviously, for one, but for two, his finishing ability is incredible. Volk versus Silva would be fireworks. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a fun fight. I just personally don't want to see it because I think Volk is decent chance he gets knocked out. Especially at that point, it'll be, you know, some more time. Who knows how old Volk will be at that point? Oh, I guess we would know how old Volk will be at that point, but who knows how he would be fighting at that point. And I know already at this point there was an interview that went around that Volk was saying that he's not going to stay that much longer. So, yeah. We'll see. Lerone will beat Pico, dude. Yeah, he might. Nothing against Lerone. I mean, he's a good fighter. He does kind of remind me of Leon Edwards a little bit, where he's a very talented fighter. On the feet, he has good striking. On the ground, he has a good ability to stop takedowns. I think we saw that in the Josh Emmett fight. He was able to stop a couple takedowns and get back up if he did get taken down. But yeah, I don't know. I personally just think it's not a bad matchup for Aaron Pico because Pico has great wrestling for one, which is something Lerone's going to need to worry about. But for two, the power advantage is certainly by far with Aaron Pico. And I kind of just feel like Lerone's going to need to be perfect throughout the fight, and Pico really just needs to land one big shot, and he can definitely utilize the wrestling to help open things up on the feet as well to land a big shot. So I don't know. It's a high-skilled fight, I believe. But stylistically, I don't think it's a bad matchup for Pico. But we'll see. How much beats you got, bro? Decent amount. And don't forget, Jan beats O'Malley. Yeah, he did beat O'Malley. I would like to see them fight again, potentially. Actually, I take that back instantly. I was going to say I would like to see them fight again, which I would. But at the same time, I think Jan's going to fight for the belt next after Sanhagen does. So we'll see. Whose lungs do you think are right now? Man, I don't know. But I'm happy that Ben's all right at this point. Don't be softy for this. Where is it again? Yeah, I guess. I mean, you're right. You are right. Lerone is good though. Lerone destroyed Emmett. Yeah, he did, but I think there's a big difference between Josh Emmett and Aaron Pico. Because for Josh Emmett, I've been talking about this for a while. For Josh Emmett, I really don't think he's a good fighter at all. He has a lot of power, and if he's able to land on you, he'll probably find a finish. Most of the time he does. We saw what happened to Bryce Mitchell when he's able to land clean on you, and there's been a bunch of other examples as well. But the thing with Josh Emmett, he's very not technical. Like, he doesn't really do anything that well. He's really only an overhand right and an occasional left hook. That's it. That's all he does throughout the entirety of the fight. He doesn't really wrestle. I know he looked to utilize it a little bit against Lerone, but for the most part, he doesn't really wrestle. He doesn't have a jab. He doesn't really set anything up. He just kind of throws wild haymakers and hopes something lands. So yes, I'm not saying the performance from Lerone against Josh wasn't a good one, because he dominated Josh Emmett. Really good performance from Lerone. My point is, I just think there's a vast difference in the skill level between Josh Emmett and Aaron Pico. I guess that's my only point, but we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if Lerone did beat Aaron Pico. We'll see how the fight goes. I know a lot of people in my chat have been going back and forth who would win this fight, either Lerone or Pico. And I think because of that, the fight is going to be really good. It is a close fight for sure. I just think stylistically, it might not be a bad one for Pico, but we'll see how it plays out. And Lerone is definitely a talented fighter. Lerone's fight most decision, still a good fighter though. Yeah, they do. That's why I kind of feel like he's similar to Leon a little bit, just because he's not like that dangerous on the feet for the most part. He just, he lands shots. He's very technical, and he usually outclasses most of his opponents. But he's just not that dangerous. And I feel like your physicality or your danger level is very important in MMA. You can be as good as you want, but eventually you're going to get caught. So that's why I feel like guys who are super physical, I talk about this all the time, but I feel like a guy like Dricus, who is like ridiculously physical, a reason why he's so successful in the UFC thus far is because he's so physical. He can take a shot really well, and if he lands one big shot on you or a couple big shots on you, you're most likely going out or at least getting hurt. And for a guy like Lerone, you can't really say the same thing for him. So if he can stay perfect for 3 or 5 rounds, yeah, he's going to beat most guys. He's very technical and very good. But, it only takes one mistake to get caught, and all of a sudden you're on your back and you're getting finished or you're completely knocked out. So that's why I personally I'm personally more of a fan of guys who are more physical, because I think they can make mistakes and still survive and get victories. Over under 1 BTC. Try to disclose this. Over. Anyways, but yeah, what about you, Rick? You got Bitcoin? I gotta charge my thing. 1 second, boys. Charge this thing up. All right. But yeah, so we'll see. As I said, I know a lot of people are kind of going back and forth with Lerone and Pico fight, and I personally think it's a really fun fight for that UFC 390 card, which is actually the card that's coming up next, and I'm definitely really excited about it. The main event is going to be insane. Who do you guys think is going to win the main event, by the way, between DDP and Hamzat? I think it's going to be a great fight. I personally think it's the fight of the year, the best fight the UFC possibly could have put together. At this point, considering that Topuria and Islam are not going to fight, at least right now, I think there's a chance they fight at 170 down the line if both of them win. But at this point, I think it's good. That's so much PTC, bro. Yeah. What do you do? Jack will take Islam out. Yeah, I do have a job outside of YouTube. I'm in finance. Jack will take Islam out. Yeah, I personally think it's possible. I know a lot of people are leaning with Islam to win the fight, just taking down JDM and submitting him, but I kind of lean with you, to be honest. I do still think that Jack has a decent chance to win the fight. When he fought Bilal, he showed a pretty good ability to stop takedowns, keep the fight on the feet, and if the fight is on the feet, he does a pretty good job at striking with essentially everybody. He was definitely a step ahead of Bilal, and even though I know a lot of people say Islam's boxing is very underrated, which it probably is, but still, there's a different level. JDM's boxing and striking is significantly better than Islam's striking is. So we'll see if he's able to stop takedowns. That's going to be the name of the game, which it usually is in fights like this. But I do still think Jack could potentially find a finish. But we'll see. And also, by just one last point, JDM is going to be bigger than Islam, which is again maybe going to be the first time ever Islam's opponent's bigger than him in the UFC thus far. So I think that's also going to be a factor. Which fighter's most likely to stay at the museum? I don't know. Like Johnny Walker or like I don't know, Johnny Walker or who's another good one? Bryce Mitchell or something like that. I don't know. Maybe something like that. Jack destroyed Bilal. You did. But sorry. but Islam is much better than Bilal. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that we do need to worry about or think about. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was able to stop takedowns against Bilal. I also thought Bilal fought like oddly. I thought Bilal probably should have shot more takedowns, but regardless, he did shoot, I believe, 9 times in the fight, and JDM was able to stop all of them, I think, or most of them at least. So that's definitely a good sign. But Islam's wrestling is better than Bilal's, so we'll see how he's able to go up against Islam in terms of his wrestling. If he can stop takedowns, get back up. If he does get taken down, so it's definitely interesting. But um, I personally think that JDM has a decent chance to beat Islam. But we'll see. It's an interesting fight. I think it's going to be on the November card. Also, I have no information on this at all, but if I'm right, clip this. I personally think the co-main event is going to be Van versus Pantoja on that New York card. The UFC always loves to stack these cards at MSG, and I think a main event of JDM and Islam and a co-main event of Pantoja and Van would be really, really fun. So I'm hoping they do that. Both of them are obviously that's going to be the next fight at flyweight, and we don't have a date yet, so I kind of feel like it might be that date. Finance pro over. Thank you. Do you do cold storage? I do. RDR Adesanya next. Yeah, I don't mind that fight. I don't mind it. I was thinking initially when RDR beat Whitaker, I was thinking, would he just get a title shot immediately after that win? But he's number 5 in the rankings at this point, so most likely not. He'll probably have to fight again. So yeah, the only 2 guys that are ahead of him that are not booked for fights are Strickland and Izzy. And out of those 2 guys, I think the fight that would honestly make more sense and also be a more fun fight would be Adesanya. So I wouldn't mind RDR versus Adesanya kind of fight. I know my computer's glitching out. I apologize, boys, if there's any lag. But I hope you can still hear me. But I would like the fight. I would like it. JDM versus Peter Yan, same weight class, boxing only. Who wins? This is a good one. I guess I would probably have to say Peter Yan just because he is at a lower weight class, and it always is like this, and it makes more sense. Like JDM is very, very skilled as a boxer, but because Jan's at a lower weight class, he's going to be a little bit faster, maybe even a little bit more skilled. Maybe some of the combinations that he puts together are a little bit more unique. That combo that he threw in his last fight, I believe it was a leg kick into a jab into a left hand, something like that. He does throw very unique combinations. Well, I guess if it's boxing only, that wouldn't count. But maybe I'll lean with Jan, but I think it's close. JDM's boxing is like ridiculously good. Both of them do a good job at putting punches and combinations very well. But I don't know. Am I changing my answer? Is it JDM? Maybe it is JDM. I think he actually might put punches and combinations even better than Jan does. Jan does a good job at mixing up everything, utilizing kicks. His kicking game is way better than JDM's. So I think his striking game overall is more diverse than JDM. But if it's only boxing, honestly, maybe the answer is JDM. I don't know. It's close. Both of them are ridiculously talented and ridiculously technical on the feet. There's a lot. Honestly, there's a decent amount of guys like this that just do a really good job at putting punches together in combination. When do you first? Not that long ago. I guess relatively, like 2019. I started buying. Is it possible to choke yourself? Let's see. Yeah, I think it is actually. I think I saw a video a while ago of someone doing it. I don't remember how they did it, but I think I've seen it. That would be unfortunate though. I think you have to you have to put your hand in a certain way or dig it into your shirt where you can't let go, or I don't know. But I guess so. I guess it is possible. Anyways, let's talk about that 319 card that's coming up relatively soon. It's going to be fun. It's the best card on paper of the year thus far, I think, unless I'm missing something obvious. But I think this is probably the best fight on paper of the year thus far. Main event, Dricus Hamzat. As I said before, I think this fight's going to be determined in the first round. If Dricus can survive round 1, I favor Dricus to win the fight. But Hamzat round 1 is probably the most dangerous fighter in maybe UFC history. To be honest, he's so good in the first round. The way he's able to take guys down and submit them or land big ground and pound shots. But But yeah, so that's definitely going to be a really good fight. Very fun main event. Co-main event is Lerone Murphy and Aaron Pico. We were kind of just talking about that. That's going to be a really fun fight. I know guys in this chat and in general are going back and forth on the fight. I'm actually curious if the odds are out. I feel like they're not, but let's see if we got odds out for the Pico and Lerone fight. If I had to guess, honestly, I do think Lerone's probably going to be the favorite. Let's see, though, if the odds are out. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, no, it's not out. That sucks. I am curious to see where the odds are going to be on that one. But as I said, I do think it's probably going to be Lerone as the favorite, but relatively close odds, I think. Bro, how am I going to say this? I didn't say you were going to steal my VTC. Toro or Taporia. Here we go. Sound just for you, brother.
Think you would beat Ilya Arturo.
So yeah, probably Toro. Ilya Toro. But yeah, so that fight's going to be fun. The co-main event, Lerone and Pico. Then we have Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates. That's going to be really, really fun. It's going to be an absolute banger. I think Prates is going to win. I'm relatively confident in saying that. But I think the fight itself is going to be an absolute war. I think what Jeff Neal is most likely going to do, and I think this is probably what he should be doing, is get on that inside, land a bunch of big shots. And we've seen it in a lot of Jeff Neal's fights. If he's able to get on that inside, he's able to land big shots, and sometimes he's able to find finishes. He even had a really close fight against Shafkat. So striking is very good. But in my opinion, I think Carlos's power is a little bit better than Jeff Neal, although Jeff does hit really hard. And I think the range is going to be a big factor in this fight as well. I think he's going to keep his range, land big shots, maybe land some counters when Jeff Neal is trying to get on that inside. And I think eventually he will be able to find a finish. But before we get there, I think I think it's going to be a war. So that should be a really fun one. I'm just someone choking themselves out in the UFC. Well, they've knocked themselves out in the UFC before, but choking themselves out would be another level of stupidity, I guess. That'd be crazy. But yeah, so outside of Prates, we have Cannonier and MVP. This is kind of a weird fight in my opinion. I think Cannonier is going to win. I saw the betting odds have Cannonier as like a plus 150, I believe, which I personally don't agree with at all. I think Cannonier should be the favorite. At range, I mean, listen, at range, MVP gives trouble to essentially everybody. His striking style is so unique and so diverse, I guess, that it just gives a lot of guys trouble. It's very hard to spar against a guy who has a similar style to that. I guess the only guy who has a similar style to that is KSI, and I don't know if these guys are bringing KSI into their training camps to go up against MVP. And I know MVP trained with KSI, so obviously he wouldn't be willing to do that anyway. So it's just difficult to find training partners that fight like him. And also it's kind of hard to find openings. MVP does a really good job utilizing that style. So Cannonier will have, he will have trouble striking with MVP at range. But the reason why I think Jared Cannonier is going to win and should be the favorite is because I think he's going to clinch a lot, get inside the clinch, hold MVP alongside the cage, land a bunch of knees and elbows. Probably won't make for the most exciting fight in the world, but I think he'll win the fight based on that. And I think we just saw it in Whitaker versus RDR, where RDR was able to hold Whitaker alongside the cage, in part because he has great wrestling, but also in part because he was just so much bigger than Whitaker was. So he did a really good job at just out-muscling Whitaker, holding him alongside the cage. And as we got to the later rounds, we saw Whitaker extremely tired. So I think we could see a similar thing in this fight between Cannonier and MVP. The size difference isn't as big, of course, but I think the strength difference is there. I think Cannonier is going to be way stronger than MVP is. And also MVP is moving up to the middleweight division. And Cannonier is not a small middleweight at all. So I do think he'll have the strength advantage in this one. And I think he'll be able to get the victory. Probably a boring fight, honestly, but do whatever it takes to win, I guess. And Cannonier at this point is 41, I believe, 42. So he just wants to get wins and potentially fight for another belt, but probably won't happen, but we'll see. Then we have Tim Elliott versus Kaya Sakura. This is going to be a fun one. I think Kai's going to win. Very confident that Kaya Sakura is going to win this fight. He's very dangerous on the feet. Yes, on the ground. He got taken down by Pantoja and got submitted, but Pantoja it's just that good in my opinion. Kai Sakura is, I don't think it's anything against him, the fact that he got taken down and submitted. Pantoja has been doing that to literally everybody. So I'm still pretty high in Kai. I know a lot of guys or a lot of fans aren't that excited about Kai anymore going forward. But I still am. I think he's going to beat Tim Elliott probably by a finish, and move up in the rankings. So we'll see where he's able to go after that. And I do still think, he could be pretty good. What did I want to say? Except for Palace here, Cannonier was. Yeah, they have. They actually have. So we'll see how Cannonier does. He obviously, what is he, 41 or 42? I still think he's a good fighter, regardless of his age. I still think he's a good fighter. He does things pretty well out there, in my opinion. And even when he actually fought both of the guys in the UFC Paris main event, Bahalio as well as Imavov. In both of those fights, Cannonier was in the fight and relatively close to winning. In the Bahalio fight, it was 2-2 going into the 5th round. I thought, the ref probably should have stopped that fight, but still he didn't. So Cannonier ended up losing by decision. But, regardless, it was 2-2 going into the 5th. And against Imavov, it was a relatively close fight, and Imavov was able to find the finish, but I personally thought it was a terrible stoppage. By the way, Jason Herzog is not a great ref anymore. I just want to point that out, just because Jason Herzog for a while was perceived to be the guy who's the best ref in the UFC. But at this point, I just feel like he's not great. It's either he stops the fight too early or too late. The Taliesin Teixeira fight or the Jared Cannonier fight versus Imavov, it was way too early of a stoppage. In this previous weekend, the Yaya fight, it was way too late of a stoppage. So I kind of feel like Herzog doesn't really know what he's doing that much. I know some people have said that he's corrupt in some way. I don't know if that's true or not. I have no evidence. But at the very least, I feel like he's not an amazing ref anymore. Just wanted to point that out. But for Jared Cannonier, I still think he's a good fighter. When a fighter has you're talking about like how I see them all time, like how good they are all time. Yeah, I mean, it does play a factor. The fact that Anderson Silva lost so many fights at the end of his career does play a factor. But at the same time, when you're talking about guys like, Anderson Silva or Tony Ferguson or Edson Barbosa or whatever, like when you think about those guys, you don't really think about their like loss streaks. Maybe for Tony at this point you do because it was so recent. But for a guy like Anderson Silva, for the most part, you think about like when he was at his best, beating everybody. You don't really think about his like ridiculously long win streak at the end of his career. So yes, it definitely does play a factor. And if you look at a guy like Khabib or John Jones, who never had that loss streak, I guess it elevates them a little bit higher. But for the most part, I guess to answer your question, I kind of see them for what they were at their best, not at their worst when they were essentially retired. So yeah. Who would you say is a gold standard of reffing? Oh man, I don't know. Is it Herb Dean? I mean, Herb was terrible for a while, but at this point, I initially he was good, then he was terrible for a while, and maybe at this one he's a little bit better. I don't think his stoppages were that bad, and any ones recently that I can remember. So maybe it's Herb Dean. I don't know. I don't think any of them are amazing at this point. Mark Goddard has always been a guy who's solid. Dan Miragliotta kind of lets the fights go a little bit too long. I don't know. It's probably Mark Goddard or Herb Dean. I don't know. Jack, what's going on, brother? Herb Dean. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Yeah, he honestly might be. But he's definitely made a lot of bad decisions over his career. But yeah, it's in a weird spot. It is in a weird spot. Similar to judging, I feel like reffing is in a similar spot to that, where there's been a lot of fights where some fights are stopped too late or too early. We saw a couple of those examples not too long ago. The Yaya fight was way too late, and the Taliesin Teixeira was too early, as I said. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, reffing is a very difficult job. You're kind of making a decision, like a split-second decision, and immediately after you stop it, you may realize it was too early of a stoppage or too late of a stoppage. and everybody's going to criticize you online. So I do admit it is a very hard job, but you know, some of the refs are not great at the same time. Make shit and actually takes points. That's fair too. He does do that. He does do that. The only thing that I don't like about Mike Beltran is, I don't know, maybe this doesn't really matter that much, but the one thing I'll say about Mike Beltran is I feel like he always tries to make himself the center of of conversation. Where I don't know, he just like does too much. He like forces guys to like dap up pre-fight, which maybe I'm looking into this too much, but he forces guys to dap up pre-fight, and then after the fight, you know, he makes them talk to each other. Like he literally takes their hands and makes them talk to each other, or congratulate each other or whatever. I don't know. That's the one thing I'll say, but that has nothing to do with his actual reffing. So, yeah. You see the new thing on YouTube? No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's weird. I haven't had to do that. Has that affected you guys? I didn't know this. I haven't gotten anything or had to send my ID. Maybe I've been on the platform for long enough. I don't know. That's weird. I don't know. Charles Ramos. Let's go. What does Dana really think about Jones? I kind of think, I know everybody says Dana loves John Jones. I kind of think he loves and he hates him. I think he loves him because John has been winning all the time and he's a great fighter, and he also, you know, sells a lot of pay-per-views for Dana. So I think he likes him because of that as well. But at the same time, I also think he doesn't love him because he's just so, I don't know, he's just so unreliable sometimes, where, you know, you don't really know what he's going to do for the UFC Hall of Fame thing. Then after that, he got into trouble a couple of years back. And there's been countless other examples. For the DC fight, he popped for roids. So you don't really know what you're going to get from John Jones. So I kind of think it's a love-hate relationship between him and Dana. And I know what's it called? I know Dana also said about the White House card that he wasn't sure if he wanted to have John Jones on it, just because, you know, he doesn't really know what you're going to get from John, and he doesn't want to fuck up the whole card if John pulls out last second or pops steroids or whatever can happen with John Jones, because obviously a bunch has happened over the years for him. So love-hate relationship, I'd say. They think of doing it in the future. Oh, they're thinking of doing it in the future. Oh, okay. So yeah, I guess that's their way of getting kids to stop watching like adult things, but there's not like like adult content here. I don't know, just avoiding them from watching videos that have cursing in it. I don't know, but all right, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't. Actually, maybe it could affect me, but I don't know. What are you gonna do? But yeah, but going back to the UFC 319 card, the main card is amazing. Main event's great. Co-main event's great. The main card in general, I think, is really fun. But outside of that, I feel like the prelims are not amazing. You have Bobby Green versus Diego Ferreira. Diego's probably going to win. Bobby, I think, is kind of retired at this point, so I don't think that's a great fight. Mir Shark versus Olajaychuk, whatever. It's not that great of a fight. Lupi Godinez versus Andrade could be fun, I guess, but not an amazing fight. Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez could be fun, but not an amazing fight. Barbosa versus Jakar Close is probably going to be pretty fun. We'll see how Barbosa looks in that fight. Brian Battle versus Ruzaboyev, I think that'll be good, actually. And then Silva versus JJ Aldridge. I think JJ Aldridge pulled out, but regardless, it's not going to be a great fight, whoever the replacement is. I actually think these two, I don't know if this is the official list, but I actually think these two fights in the early prelims are better than a lot of the fights that are on like the main prelims. Barbosa versus Close and Brian Battle versus Ruzaboyev should be on the actual prelims, not that early prelims, I think. But we'll see. We need a Grasso fight soon. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when she fights next. Not amazing performances in some of in her most recent fight, just getting taken down a million times. Well, that was the fight prior, and then her last fight, she showed a couple holes as well. But I get why you want to see Grasso. So we'll see. We'll see when Grasso's fighting next. Who would you rather hang out with? From the Chinese side? Not great options. Honestly, maybe Bo Nickel. I'll tell you why. Because at least with Bo Nickel, I can learn a thing or two. Maybe he can teach me how to wrestle a little bit. We can train a little bit. So maybe I'll say Bo Nickel. But if training's not included, it's just like going out to a restaurant or whatever, then maybe Bear because it'll be funnier. Um, Bo's a sleepyhead, yeah, but Bo's not a he's not a exciting guy. Kind of low energy kind of guy, but um, if we could train together, then Bo. He, for whatever people want to say about Bo, he does have great wrestling, so it'll be fun to learn, I guess. Um, but yeah, so 319 is definitely good. I'm excited about it. We're coming up on it though. We're pretty close. This weekend Apex, next weekend Apex, and then we got 319. And we were talking about this on a live stream not too long ago, but this fall is going to be very, very good. So obviously this card in August, the pay-per-view in August is great, as they touch upon. But when you look at some of the cards going into the fall, they're going to be great. The Shanghai card, it's also in August, but at the end of August is really good. Imavov and Bahalio fight, or Paris card with Imavov and Bahalio as the main event. And as we touched upon before, BSD versus Ruffy as the co-main event is going to be really fun. We'll see how they fill out the rest of the card, but those two top fights are going to be great, and the crowd in Paris is always fun. Then it's actually unfortunate. Then for the UFC Noche card, it's actually horrible. I think it's one of the worst cards we've ever seen in an arena, at least lately. The main event's great, but everything else is terrible. So that's not a great example. But then you have UFC Perth with Olberg and Dominic Reyes as the main event. That's going to be fun. We'll see how they fill out the rest of the card. But that main event is a really good one. Then you have UFC 320 in October, the beginning of October, with Pereira Magomed, Merab Khoury, and Yuri versus Roundtree. We only have those 3 fights announced thus far, but those top 3 are amazing. So that'll be fun. RDR looked the weight class above the last fight. Yeah, I agree. He it literally looked like Whitaker was RDR's son or something. It was ridiculous size difference between the two guys. Whitaker has never been big for the weight class, and RDR is like huge for the weight class. So yeah, it looked kind of ridiculous. But that's a big reason for why I think RDR is so great. Well, yeah, I guess you could say that, or at least very good, just because he's bigger than everybody else. He does do good things if he's able to take you down. He has great ground and pound shots. He has really good jiu-jitsu on the ground. He's been able to submit a lot of guys. And on the feet, I mean, he's very clunky. He has a really good knee to the body. Not really much else outside of that, honestly. But a reason for why, as I was saying, for why I think he's so successful and some other guys are so successful, like Dricus or Marlon Moraes, or not Marlon Moraes, Michael Morales, or some other guys. It's just because they're so much bigger than their opponents. They don't have to be all that technical. They can take big shots and still survive just because they're so much bigger than their opponents. And I think we saw that exactly when Whitaker landed that perfect overhand right on RDR. I have no idea how he took it, but the only explanation for that is he's just bigger. He's just a lot bigger than Whitaker is, so it's probably a reason. Does it piss you off when fighters have an obvious weakness, but their opponent doesn't use it? Yeah, it 100% does. 100% does. We've seen this a lot, honestly. There's been so many examples of this, and it's just bad game planning. It's bad on the part of the fighter, or a bad look on the part of the fighter who's actually in there, of course. But also, it's a bad part on it's bad on the part of the training camp as well, his coaches, his cornermen, whatever. Just because if there's such an obvious weakness that his opponent has, and you don't go to that to try to exploit it, you're really not giving yourself the best opportunity to win the fight. So it is annoying, especially if it's a fighter that you like or potentially have a bet on if you guys do that. But yeah, it definitely is frustrating. How would RDR do at light heavyweight? I don't think as well as middleweight, but at the same time, at light heavyweight, I do think there are a lot of beneficial matchups for him. Because I guess the reason why I say not as well as middleweight is just because his size advantage is not going to be as pronounced. So we'll see if he's able to take big shots from guys at light heavyweight, and we'll see how many mistakes he's able to make at that weight class before he gets finished or isn't able to take it. But when you look at some of the guys at the top half of the division, and Alex Pereira, Yuri Prohaska, Carlos Olberg, Roundtree, Jamal Hill, even Jan Blachowicz to a certain extent. Most of those guys aren't grapplers. And I do believe that RDR, stylistically, honestly, might actually have a pretty good edge over some of those guys. If he can take Pereira down, I think he'll probably submit him. If he can take Yuri down, it'll be more difficult to submit him, but he will have an advantage in the grappling. If he can take Olberg down, he'll submit him. If he can take Roundtree down, I think he submits him. For Jan, I guess it'll be a little bit harder, but Jan has been submitted in the past by Glover Teixeira. So I do think RDR could submit him, but it'll be a little bit harder. For Jamal Hill, Jamal has shown a great ability to stop takedowns, I guess as well as Alex has. But if RDR is able to take down Jamal, I think he submits him. Rakic might be a little bit more difficult, but I think he could. Dominic Reyes would be more difficult than some of those other guys. But those guys at the top of the rankings, I think stylistically actually aren't bad matchups for RDR. So who knows? We honestly could be in a world. Sounds kind of funny, but we could be in a world where RDR beats, let's say he fights Adesanya next. He beats Adesanya, gets the title shot, then fights either Hamzat or Dricus, beats Dricus or Hamzat, becomes a champion, maybe gets one title defense and moves up to light heavyweight, beats one guy at light heavyweight, and then fights for the belt. I mean, I think that's probably unlikely, but there is a possible scenario where that does happen, which would honestly be pretty funny. But we'll see what happens for RDR. I mean, listen, RDR is a lot bigger than everybody else at his weight class, and that's a huge advantage for him. But outside of that, I don't want to like bash on him like that much. I do think he's a good fighter. It's just his style is like a little bit wonky out there. And it's, in my opinion, it's kind of like Dricus on steroids. Like Dricus does a lot of weird things out there. He falls over and gets a takedown on Adesanya, like that, or that one clip that was going around when he was throwing shots like this. And then somebody had, when he was fighting Strickland, and somebody had an angle where Strickland was literally like here, and Dricus threw a shot like where he wasn't, where he moved away from like an hour before throwing that shot. So Dricus does weird things, but I think RDR does even more weird things. So I am kind of hoping we see Dricus RDR. It'd be a hilarious fight, but we'll see. We'll see. But I do think that is a common trend, though, lately, where guys are just figuring out a way to cut even more weight than some other guys. Because as I mentioned, if you look throughout the UFC, we already talked about RDR, we already talked about Dricus, we talked about Michael Morales. There's obviously some other examples of that as well, but there's certain guys that just are able to cut a ridiculous amount of weight, and they're just bigger than everybody else. And I think it's a part of a common trend that guys that are able to successfully do that turn out to be guys that are some of the better fighters in the division. RDR's top 5 fighter now. Dricus is a champion. Michael Morales, I believe, will become a champion eventually. So I think that's sort of style or game plan or whatever, just cutting as much weight as possible is pretty effective, honestly. Hamzat getting goofed, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. DDP by plot armor. Yeah, as I said, how I think the fight is going to go is round 1. Hamzat's going to be able to find a takedown, put Dricus in a really bad situation. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a 10-8 round in the first round, but I think Dricus survives it. Then in round 2, Hamzat's going to be a lot more tired. Dricus is going to have a little bit more success. And then round 3, round 4, round 5, Dricus is really going to start to have more and more success. And as we get later in the fight, especially starting in round 3, let's say, I think Dricus is going to push a pace. He's going to pressure Hamzat a lot. I think he's going to start landing a lot of shots on the feet. Don't be surprised, even if he goes for a takedown. I wouldn't be surprised if he shoots in for a takedown in around 4 or 5. And I think Dricus is going to win the fight, honestly. It's a big if he can survive round 1, but I think if anybody would be able to do it, it would be Dricus. And I kind of feel like he's going to pull away late. And I wouldn't be shocked if he found a finish round 4, round 5. Off an exhausted Hamzat Chimaev. I wouldn't be shocked, but we'll see. Who'd you rather have in your corner, Will Smith or Jesse Fire? Will Smith will stand up for me. I guess I'll say. How much credit do you give a fighter? I give him credit. Are you trying to say like somebody who beat Dustin or Charles when they were fighting at 145? How much credit do I beat them? Or Usman for beating Strickland? Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I do give them credit because the guys are obviously great fighters. Like Drickus or Strickland is even a pretty good fighter as well. Or Max, I guess you could say kind of for Max Holloway, although Max has had a lot of most of his career at 145. But I do give them credit. Yeah, I mean, they're still great fighters. I think when you look back at that Connor fight when he fought Dustin initially, I don't go back and look at that fight and be like, oh, Connor kind of beat up on a drained Poirier. I can only go back in that fight and say, oh, Connor's second fight in the UFC was actually a pretty impressive win versus a guy who turned out to be pretty successful in Dustin. So I give them credit. I do give them credit. Even if they were at a lower weight class. Yeah, they're not their best, of course. But and if they're at a lower weight class, most likely it's earlier on in their career, unless I guess you're talking about Dan Hooker, who tried to move down to 135. By the way, I have no idea how Dan Hooker, who's not small at all for 145, was able to cut down, or sorry, for 155, was able to cut down to 145. I don't know how he made that cut, but he did. It wasn't successful, obviously. But outside of Dan, for the most part, it's guys that are earlier on in their careers. So I still give them credit. Or Usman beating Benoit. Yeah, I give him credit. I do, but at the same time, I do realize and recognize that it's not the best version of them. But yeah, where were we? UFC 320, early October. Pereira, Magomed, Merab, Corey, Yuri Roundtree. Yeah, so that card's gonna be good for sure. It's definitely gonna be fun. Main event's good. Co-main event's solid, and the third fight in the card is amazing. Yuri versus Roundtree. And this is kind of another fight that I'm going back and forth on personally. 1 second, boys. But yeah, I'm personally going back and forth on it personally because Yuri is going to utilize a lot of pressure in this fight, I think, and he obviously hits really hard. He's very aggressive, and I wouldn't be surprised if he landed a big shot on Roundtree. But at the same time, Roundtree is actually pretty technical. He does also hit really hard, and we saw him have an ability to avoid shots for 5 rounds against Jamal Hill. So I do go back and forth on it. What do you guys think about that fight? Who do you think is going to win? I'm assuming most guys are leaning with Yuri, but I kind of go back and forth on it. I'm not sure. Maybe if I had to say, I'll lean Yuri, but I'm going back and forth on it. But anyways, it's going to be a good fight. We don't have any other fights announced on 320 besides those top 3, but those top 3 are great, and I'm assuming that card is going to be really, really fun. Next, after that, we have Marion Figueroa and Jasmine Jastovicius. I guess that's the main event. I'm assuming this is an Apex card. Oh, it's not actually. It's going to be in Canada. We'll see how they fill out that card. It's really only that fight right now. Not an amazing main event, but if the rest of the card is good, then fine. Then after that, we have at the end of October, we have UFC 321, Tom Aspinall versus Real Gon. I said this a bunch. I think Tom is kind of going to wash Gon. On the feet, it could be close if Gon can stop takedowns. I just don't think Gon is going to be able to stop takedowns. And the way I see this fight going is Gon's fight versus John Jones. I think Tom's just going to take Gon down, find a submission, and go from there, get the victory. But we'll see. I guess I could be wrong. Then we have Volkov and Almeida. I think Almeida is going to win the fight personally, but that's actually a good fight, good ranked fight for the heavyweight division. Winner of that fight gets a title shot against most likely Tom. Then Rakic versus Azamat. That's going to be a really fun one. I lean Azamat, honestly, but that's a really, really good fight. Good step up in competition for him. And for Rakic, he's taken his last loss was Yuri. His last fight was against Yuri, I believe, which is a while ago. So he's had some time off. We'll see how he does against Azamat. But I think stylistically, it's not a bad fight for Murzakanov. And then Hamdi versus Chris Barnett is just literally a meme fight. Hamdi's not really good in my opinion. It looks like he could have good boxing, but he kind of just like stops striking at points. Well, where he'll land like a couple good shots and then he pressures his opponent and then just stares at him. He has a good wrestling background. He doesn't wrestle at all. And in terms of his striking, like his technique looks pretty good and he lands some good shots. But as I said, then he just stops striking. So I don't know, weird fighter. And Chris Barnett is he's like a flyweight or not a flyweight. He's like a featherweight or something like that. And he's fighting at heavyweight. He's what is he like 5'9" or something ridiculous. So he's kind of a meme fighter, but he's very athletic. Spinning wheel kick finish that he got at the Garden and like a backflip or front flip, whatever it was. He's very athletic, so we'll see how that fight goes. Ikram Aliskerov versus Iron Turtle is actually a really good fight. I'm kind of rooting for the Iron Turtle, but we'll see. Ikram's a good fighter. Very definitely chinny though. So we'll see if the Iron Turtle can land a big shot. So that card's looking good as well. Yuri by round TKO round 2 or 3, hopefully. Yeah, I could see that. This fight honestly could be a fight of whoever lands first between Yuri and Roundtree. So we'll see how it plays out. But if Yuri's able to land a clean shot on Roundtree, he'll probably get knocked out. I don't really think anybody's going to be able to take Yuri's shots. But at the same time, Roundtree hits really hard. And if he lands clean on Yuri might get knocked out or maybe knocked down. And then Roundtree can find a finish from there. So we'll see. It's going to be very, very exciting. And we'll see how it pans out. But yeah, most people are going with Yuri in that one. And I believe the odds are out for that fight. And Yuri's like a minus 150 favorite, I think, which is probably fair. Maybe he's a bigger favorite. I got to double check it, but that would be fair. Usman is often underrated, partially because of his personality. Yeah, I agree. I personally agree. I think Usman was actually a pretty good fighter. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of Usman. He didn't fight great fighters or whatever. But I agree. I personally think he was very good. I thought that Colby Covington he fought both times was a really good fighter. His cardio was great. His wrestling was great. And, both of those fights were really good ones. The first one was an all-time fight. Usman and Colby. If you guys haven't seen that fight, definitely go back and watch it. That's an all-time fight. And then in their second fight at the Garden, it was also good. Definitely slower pace, but it was good. And Usman pulled out a very close victory in that one, beating Gilbert Burns, beating Masvidal twice. I know maybe some of these names aren't, the best in the world, at the best resume in the world, but the way he was beating everybody and the fact that he was beating everybody twice, in my opinion, was very impressive. And I thought Usman was a really good fighter. And at this point, he's still fighting. He just beat Buckley relatively dominantly, taking him down in every round and holding him down for the entire round. So I personally think Usman's a good fighter and underrated. Yeah. It's kind of last thing about Usman. It's kind of weird because there was a point where Usman was champion. Everybody hated Usman because he was boring or whatever. Then he started knocking people out, but people still hated Usman. And then after Leon won the belt and Leon, fought in a couple boring performances, everybody was like, oh, we missed the good old days when Kamaru Usman was champ and he was knocking everyone out and putting on fun performances. And now we're kind of back in that stage where everybody's not a fan of Usman anymore. So it's kind of a weird seesaw with Kamaru, but yeah, I personally think he's good. Rakic fought on Clash. Oh, you're right, actually. You are right. Yeah. So he lost. He got TKO'd by Yuri. Then he fought Ankalaev after that. But that fight, he didn't take that much damage, but it was kind of just got outclassed by Ankalaev. I think that fight is actually a great example of what Ankalaev does well. He's very, very defensively sound. He's not always the most exciting fighter. Honestly, he's usually not an exciting fighter, and I think that fight kind of shows Ankalaev's style. But we also saw in that fight, he's just very defensively sound, did a good job of pressuring in that fight, landing a couple nice shots, and he was able to get the decision victory in the end. So, that's kind of how Ankalaev fights, how he wants to at least. But yeah, what's the difference between a win? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Well, I would probably say the difference is if you say a win aged well, I don't know if an example of that would be like someone who beat Charles Oliveira early in his career, because he was very clearly a completely different fighter at this point than what he is now. I think a win that aged well would be, I can't think of a specific example, but somebody beating a fighter that was really good at the time and is still really good. I think that's a better example of a win that aged well, as opposed to beating Max or beating Charles, or Max is probably not the best example, but like a Charles early on in his career. because Charles then and Charles now is literally a completely different fighter. So yeah, I guess that's the difference. Why does people call Expert fraud? Yeah, if people are calling Alex a fraud, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, he was a 2 division champ. I know he fought a lot of strikers, but still, he kind of fought the guys that were in front of him. Beating Yuri was a great win twice. Beating Adesanya was a great win. I know Adesanya at this point, he is where he is, but still, when Alex was able to beat him, it was a great win. And I know he got knocked out by him in the rematch, but if you look back at that fight, Alex was winning. He kind of just made a mistake where he left himself too open, and Adesanya capitalized, landed a big shot, and it was also at a lower weight class. So Alex was cutting a lot of weight. His chin wasn't as good, and he got knocked out cold. So, it is what it is. But, he also beat Strickland, which is a good win in my opinion. And people forget, man. But at the light heavyweight division, Alex had 2 or 3 title defenses. Beat Yuri for the belt. Then he beat Roundtree, beat Yuri again, beat Jamal Hill. And is that it? So we had 3 title defenses at light heavyweight. And that's pretty good. And the Yuri wins were good wins. So, yeah, I don't know. I personally don't think Alex is a fraud, but if anybody is saying that, then I don't know. I don't agree with it. But, yeah. Brother, do you know how to do the Taporia smirk? No, I don't. That guy, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about because you brought this up. That guy that did the Taporia smirk and they put his music in the background, that was like spot on accurate. That's really funny. But yeah. Speaking of impressions, I've seen some guy. I don't think he's that big. Let's see if I can pull this up for you boys. But I saw some guy on TikTok. Dude, his impressions are honestly insane. Like, really, really good. He had a Derek Lewis impression that was spot on. Let's see if I can find this guy. All right, I don't want to see that. Just saw like a weird video. The first thing that came up. Let's see if I can find this guy. I'll give him some promo. I mean, we got 6 guys in here, but let's see. 1 second while I find this. His name is. Let's see, boys. What is it? Sorry, boys. Bear with me. Bear with me. It'll be worth it in the end, I promise. I think it's this. All right, we got it, boys. We got it. All right, let's get this all set up. Oh, there's no way these are dead. All right, the sound's not gonna be great, but just bear with me. All right. So here's this guy's page. Follow him if you guys like it. But listen to this guy's Derek Lewis. It's insane, bro. Is it this one or it might be a different one? All right, yeah. That's honestly, it's insane. It's a really good Derek Lewis. He has some other good impressions. His Brazilian. Oh, it's muted? Fuck. Oh, yeah, it is muted, obviously. 1 second, boys. Sorry. Um, I got to, I always forget. There we go. All right. This sound's not going to be great because my headphones aren't working. So you might kind of hear it double, but bear with me. All right, this is Derek Lewis again.
Dana called, offered me to fight. I didn't even want to fight for real, but I won't buy a new truck, so let's get it. I'm about to whoop this boy ass. Dana called.
Yeah, so that's just Derek Lewis. Literally sounds like him. It's pretty good. This is the Brazilian.
Yes, my friend. I practiced a long time. Many jiu-jitsu classes with teacher. I go, look at here. You put a hand like this. Also, por que será, né? Por que será que o sotaque tá perfeito? Yes, my.
So that's good. He has a really good Yoel Romero, but Yoel Romero is kind of easier to do, I think. Joe Rogan has a great Yoel Romero, but that's not what I pressed.
I know you might. I know you might. You say something like that to me. I know you. See you soon, boy. I know you.
Literally spot on. It's honestly insane how good it is. What else is he? I don't think he's done anything else, has he? Dude, it's actually insane. It's literally spot on. The Yoel Romero one is literally spot on. Derek Lewis one is insane. Brazilian one is good. I guess he's not impersonating anyone specific, but the Brazilian one's really good. All right, this is the Dana. The Dana one is good. Like the beginning is like spot on, but as it gets longer into it, it's not as good. But listen.
Dana's gonna introduce me like, "What's up, fight fans? We got a fucking bald bitch over here." Dana's gonna introduce me like,
the What's Up fans is spot on, and I guess it tails off a little bit after that. But the What's Up fans is really good. I don't know. Is there anybody else? Yeah, I think that's kind of it. Anyways, though, yeah. So I just found that guy not too long ago. His impersonations are really good. So shout out to him. Yeah. So what were we talking about, boys? Oh yeah, UFC 321. So that's gonna be good. And yeah, that's actually all the cards that we have at this point that are announced, or at least that are on Google. I think actually there was one more card that was announced after that. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it somewhere else. Okay, so we have a November card in Qatar. Yeah, that's it actually. Yeah, all right. So that's where we're at this point. A lot of good fights in November and in the fall in general. And as I said, I think the New York card, obviously not announced yet, but I think the New York card is going to be very, very good. So definitely a lot of things to look forward to at this point. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see how everything works out in all of those fights and which fighters win, which fighters lose, and move up in the rankings. By the way, out of all of the prospects at this point, who do you guys think is like the best prospect in the UFC at this point? We just made a tier list earlier. If you guys weren't here for it, we did a tier list on the best prospects in the UFC, at least in my opinion. But who do you guys consider to be the best prospect in the UFC? I think it's actually a tough question. There's a lot of guys that I think are really, really good. But honestly, I feel like this is not a common answer. But if I had to say, honestly, I might say Alexandre Topuria. I keep saying that. I keep mixing them up. But I think Alexandre Topuria might be my answer. Just because he's physical, hits really hard, his wrestling's great. On the feet, looks like he's pretty good as well. Good head movement, similar to Ilya's. Solid boxing, and he kind of utilizes it to get into the wrestling, to find openings, find takedowns. So he hasn't fought that many times at this point. Not super active, but in the couple of occasions where we have seen Alexandre, he's looked very good. And I personally think he has a real chance to be a real contender, and who knows, maybe even a champion one day. So we'll see what he's able to do. Also, he's very big for his division. But outside of him, I'm a big fan of Andre Lima. I think he's really good. I know he's not really talked about that much, but I personally think he's really good. Great striker. He showed a good ability to grapple as well in his last fight. I think he's pretty good. Wellmaker, Topuria probably. Yeah, Wellmaker's really good. The only thing about Wellmaker that I want to say is we haven't seen him tested that much. That's the only thing that I'll say about Wellmaker. But based on what we've seen from him, he's looked amazing. His left hook is ridiculously powerful. I think we've seen that a couple of times. And he also does a good job at setting it up because, listen, when you're fighting at the UFC level, for the most part, maybe some guys you go up against, you'll be able to land big shots without setting them up. But for the most part, if you have a signature punch like Pereira does with the left hook, or even Wellmaker does with the left hook also, you have to set that up. It's very difficult to land a shot on UFC caliber fighters when they know that's your best shot. So the fact that Wellmaker was able to land that left hook a couple times in both of his fights and fine finishes definitely does show that he does have technical ability outside of just one singular punch. So I do think he's also pretty good. We'll see. I mean, obviously there's other guys that are good. I think Ribovic that's fighting this weekend is going to be pretty good. And Bashi, I think could be pretty good. There's definitely a lot of names that I think are good. And it'll be exciting to see where some of these guys go forward from here. But yeah, as I was touching upon before, this weekend is pretty good for prospects. We have Tyra. I don't know if you consider Tyra to be a prospect. He is kind of high up in the rankings, but we have Tyra and Hong Sang Park, which is certainly a prospect. We have them in the main event. We also have Ribovic on the card, who I think is a prospect. I think he's going to be very good. Kevin Vejos, who's a really good prospect in my opinion. Nakamura, I know he lost his last fight. I believe he did. But Nakamura is a pretty good prospect in my opinion. So we'll see how he does, how he bounces back against Nathan Fletcher in this fight. So that'll be fun. We also have Austin Bashi. I think he's a pretty good prospect as well. He's fighting this weekend as well. And I guess for prospects, that's really it. At least prospects that I think are going to be really good. But yeah, that's a decent amount of good prospects on this card. And it is an Apex card, which, Apex cards are usually not so great. So that's fun to see for sure. Think there's any value on Nathan Fletcher? There might be. Nathan Fletcher's a good fighter as well. I guess I could have added him to the prospect board. Let's see. What's the value on let's see. What's the value? There might be. If it's like ridiculous, then there might be. Bashi's a ridiculous favorite, but probably makes sense. Yeah, I think there is value. There probably is value. Nathan is, you can't see my screen. Nathan is a plus 310. Nakamura is a minus 420. And Nakamura obviously has great grappling. A lot of these guys coming up from Japan do, but this could be value. A plus 310 could be value. So you might be onto something. I think personally, I'm probably not going to bet this weekend just because this might be a value somewhere we can find value. But outside of that, honestly, I don't really see it for really anything else. Bashi, I think Bashi's good. Can you take a shot here on Yana? Yeah, you can, but I'm very confident Bashi's going to win the fight. I don't really think John's that great of a fighter at all. So I think it's kind of a layup for Bashi. So I don't think there's any value there. If you think Pulaev is going to win, maybe you can take that. But he's not an amazing fighter, and getting him at minus 162, not great. If you want to take a shot on Tresean Gore, maybe you can take him at plus 172. But I don't know. Not super confident in that. Vejos, I think, is going to win, and I think, honestly, it's probably priced fairly. Dos Santos, I think, is priced fairly. I think Neil Magny's really not good. Then this fight, whatever. I'm very confident that Ribovic is going to win. Minus 280. There's no value there. Oh, there's props. Let's see. By KO, plus 165. It's not amazing. It's not amazing. So maybe you could take this. Or I personally think he's going to get a second round KO. So what is that? Round 2 KO. It's not bad. Plus 700. Maybe you could take this. What about total rounds? This is not bad, actually. Under 2.5 at minus 106. I actually kind of like this. I personally think it's going to go under 2 rounds or less. That's how I personally see it. Odds actually don't agree with me. So maybe you take a shot. Ribovic KO round 2, and then you take you put a little more money on under 2.5. Brenner goes for it, and Ribovic hits hard and also goes for it. So I don't mind that one. Rubetsky, I think he's going to beat Duncan, but maybe there's some value on Duncan. Rubetsky definitely has gassed in the past, so maybe there's value there. And Tyra, I think Tyra's going to finish Hung Sung Park. Let's see. Tyra by submission. What is it? Plus 165. It's not great. It's not great. Total rounds under 3.5, minus 128. I mean, it's flyweight. Flyweight at minus money. Not great. Yeah, I don't know. There's honestly not much on this card. It's really not much. Just a couple fights that I think could be decent value. And even then, I'm kind of like not that confident in it. It just like could be value. So I'll probably stay away from this weekend. But there's a couple that if you really wanted to bet, maybe a couple fights or a couple of bets that may be decent. Have you ever seen a fighter with an obvious weakness, but no one talks about it? And who is it? Well, yes, I've seen a fighter with an obvious weakness, but Cyril Gane comes to mind. But everybody talks about Gane's weakness in the grappling. Let's see. Is there anybody in the rankings with an obvious weakness? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. It's a good question. An obvious weakness. I don't know. This probably doesn't answer your question, but maybe Volkanovski against a guy who hits really hard. I think people talk about that, but I think that's his weakness. Let's see. What do we got here? I don't know. Maybe you can say Topuria if somebody fights him at range and utilizes a lot of kicks and teep kicks, leg kicks, teep kicks, long shots, long jab, right hand. Like when Ilya was going into his fight against Charles, I think Ilya would win anyway. But I guess the best way that you can try to stop Topuria, which is something that Max I thought did decently well, is just utilize your long range weapons to try to keep Topuria off of you, to land shots on Topuria. Topuria is going to be shorter and have a shorter reach than most guys, especially at 155. So maybe keep your range, leg kicks, teep kicks, head kicks. Head kicks actually is a big one. And maybe using a jab, right straight, no hooks or uppercuts or anything like that. Long range weapons. Maybe that could be something effective against Topuria. As I said, I still think he probably beats everybody, even if they do implement that style. But if you had to point out a weakness for Topuria, maybe it would be that. But I don't think that really answers your question. I think Imavov with pressure, that's not a bad one. Yeah. I've never been high on Imavov. He's a good fighter. I don't want to say he's not. He is a good fighter. On the feet, he's relatively technical. I think the biggest thing on the feet that he does, though, very well, something I'll give him credit for, is on the feet, I think he does a great job at mixing up the pace. So for the majority of the fight, he'll fight at a certain pace. He's very fast. His striking is very fast. So he'll be fighting at a certain pace, and then all of a sudden he'll throw a quick jab right hand, like very quick, double the speed of some of his other shots. And I think that really catches a lot of his opponents off guard. I think we saw that in the Cannonier fight, where all of a sudden, he landed a quick jab right hand. I believe that's what the shot was. And he was able to hurt Cannonier and finish him from there. So I think that's really the thing that he does well. But if you are pressuring Imavov, you could definitely tire him out. I think actually a good example of this is when he fought Strickland. Strickland on like 3 days' notice, however long it was, fat as ever, was able to come in there, pressure Imavov, tire him out, beat him very decisively. And yeah, walk out of there with victory. So I think you're probably onto something with that. I think Sean Strickland is, not the most exciting fight in the world, but he's a tough fight. And I think for a guy like Imavov and Izzy as well, as he's shown, he could be a difficult fight for. So yeah, I think you're probably onto something. If Kaio could pressure Imavov, maybe he can have success. But we'll see. I think that's actually a very good one. How many people do you think Dana meets on a daily basis? I don't know. A lot. You mean like you're talking about people that he works with and fighters, or you mean like including fans? Because if it's including fans, it's like hundreds. He probably meets a lot of people. I guess depends what he's doing, of course, but doing his normal day-to-day stuff, probably hundreds. And also, I know he goes to the casino a lot. He does live streams playing blackjack or whatever with people, so hundreds probably. Strickland actually shot a takedown on Imavov. Yeah, Strickland has pretty good grappling. He just refuses to utilize it. If he looked to grapple Alex Pereira at that point in Alex's career, who knows? Maybe he could have beat Alex. So yeah, his grappling is good. He's got good wrestling for sure. He just doesn't utilize it. And honestly, if Strickland ever fought him again, maybe he beats him. Honestly, I think his style is probably kind of difficult for Imavov. And Strickland's really hard to hit on top of the pressure and wrestling. So honestly, probably a tough fight. Imavov was shooting himself in the third round with Bucky. Yeah. He does gas out. We have seen him gas out for sure. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Kaio Bahia does. I am a fan of Kaio. I think he's good, for sure. I don't know if stylistically it's an amazing fight for him against Imavov. His wrestling's not amazing, but his jiu-jitsu is pretty good. It was really good, I should say. So if he can get the fight on the ground, I think Kaio can have success. I think it's going to be difficult to get it there. But if he's able to pressure Imavov, shoot in for takedowns, and force Imavov to defensively wrestle for the most part, stay on the back foot, he will gas out or he will tire out, and then I think Kaio can start to go to work from there. But it's a lot easier said than done. It'll be very difficult to do that. So we'll see who wins. I know Imavov is the favorite, or I believe he is. I would assume he would be. But I don't think it's inconceivable that Kaio can win the fight. The difficulty of Dana's position is underrated. Yeah. Yeah. I probably agree. He has done a great job. I mean, listen, as of late, I know a lot of guys kind of say Dana's checked out, which honestly, I agree with to a certain extent, but just because he's kind of like doing so many different things, so it's just naturally difficult to focus on one specific thing. But throughout the years, Dana has honestly done a great job at promoting fights, at putting big fights together, putting on the fights that the fans want to see. I know this year it hasn't been amazing because we didn't get the John Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight. We didn't get the Ilya versus Islam fight, at least yet. Honestly, yet for both of them. We could there's honestly a world where we get both of those fights. John versus Tom at the White House and Taporia versus Islam at 170. It's possible. Is it likely at this point? I don't know if it's likely, but it is possible that we get both of those fights. But for the most part, as I was saying, Dana has done a pretty good job at putting together the fights that fans wanted to see. And yeah, his job is definitely difficult. But at this point, he's kind of like doing everything. With Power Slap, I don't really know if anybody watches Power Slap, but I personally don't. And now the UFC, BJJ, boxing. I don't know. Probably his bull. That was a funny meme going around when we were supposed to hear an announcement from him from UFC fights, and he's just posting about his bull or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, he's just doing so many different things. So I guess it's hard to focus on whatever. So maybe the real guys behind the scenes that are putting these fights together at this point might be Mick Maynard or Sean Shelby. But I don't know. I'm sure Dana's still involved. But yeah, he does do pretty good stuff for sure. What else? What else? Do we got anything? Picture of Drickus out. He's looking jacked. There you go. Very good, Drickus. Very good. Is it just me, or is Imavov's already not that good? Just the one to see fight. Listen, you're kind of speaking to the right guy because I personally don't think Imavov is that good either. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go too far the other way where I'm just hating on the guy because he does have skill. But oh man, you know what I just thought of? This is kind of a random thought. I'll answer your question in a second. I just thought of Nazim Sadikov. How did I not have him on their prospect list? I don't think he's ranked, so he would probably be considered to be a prospect. Dude, Nazim Sadikov is really good. He'd probably be an A tier. That was just a random thought when I was looking for that. But yeah, so for Imavov, let's see Imavov's record in the UFC. So he joined the UFC in 2020, beat Jordan Williams, lost to Phil Hawes, majority decision. I don't think that's a bad loss. Phil Hawes is a really good fighter, in my opinion. His chin is horrible, but I think Phil Hawes is a great fighter. I think that's honestly one of the bigger what ifs. I think he's that good. If Phil Hawes had a good chin, I think he could be a championship contender. I actually believe that. So I don't think that loss is that bad. Then he beat Shabazian, Buckley. I thought it was clear Imavov won, but I guess kind of close. Then he lost to Strickland, kind of got dominated to a certain extent. Then no contest versus Chris Curtis, but I believe he was winning the fight. But Chris Curtis is not amazing. Then he beat Roman Dolidze, very obviously. So I guess that's a good win for him. But Roman Dolidze he's like an okay fighter. He's not amazing. Then he beat Jared Cannonier, which is a good win, in my opinion. Even though Cannonier's older, I think that's a good win. It's just the stoppage was controversial. Maybe he would have won the fight anyway, but the stoppage was odd. And then he beat Brendan Allen in his last fight, which is also a solid win. But, Brendan Allen kind of just gassed out. And then he beat Adesanya, which I thought was a good win. But I don't know. His career's not that bad, honestly. He has some good wins under his belt. And with the Adesanya one, I know a lot of people will preface that with, Adesanya's washed at this point, so whatever. But if you look at that first round, Adesanya looked pretty good, I thought. And he was landing good shots on Imavov. I think stylistically, Adesanya has a tough fight against Imavov just because he likes to back up. And when Imavov's on the front foot, he does a much better job at putting punches together in combination, landing big shots, and obviously he was able to find the finish on Izzy. So yeah. So to answer your question, I don't think Imavov is a great fighter personally. I'm lower on Imavov than most guys are, but at the same time, I think when you look at his record, he has some pretty decent wins. So yeah, that's what I'll say about Imavov. I agree. Phil Hawes was literally a glass kind of yeah. It is so unfortunate. Phil Hawes is a really good fighter. Yeah, I mean, if he had a good chin or a decent chin, his chin was literally glass. But if he had like a decent chin or an okay chin, like you can even go to that level. Like if his chin was, let's say, a Volkanovski chin, which I would consider Volk's chin to be like okay, or like solid. I would say solid. So if he had like a Volkanovski chin, I think he would be really good. Legitimate contender. Who knows? Maybe he could have won the belt at a certain point. But yeah, I think he's that good. I honestly do. But, he didn't have a great chin. He got knocked out a bunch. And I'm sure a lot of people think maybe he's not that good or don't remember him or whatever. But if you watch Phil Hawes, you know. Who would you rather have in your training camp, Will Smith or Neil deGrasse Tyson? I'll say Will Smith. He'll teach me how to slap. I'll say Will Smith. But yeah. But yeah, I wanted to see something if we have any additional news. Let's see. Did anything come out ever since we were streaming? No. Yeah, there's honestly not that much news out. Really, the big news of the day, which is BSD versus Ruffy, which is a great fight. Great co-main event. Going to be really fun. And in terms of the rankings, it has good meaning. Both guys are young up-and-comers. So that'll be fun. And then the other thing was Martin Buday got cut from the UFC after going 7-1 with the company. So Yeah, it's weird. But as I said, I think with the Buday thing, I think probably the thought process behind the UFC was this guy doesn't really put on fun performances, and yes, he's winning, but he's not really putting on fun performances, and I'm not so sure if he would be successful once he gets towards the upper half of the heavyweight division. So I guess that's why they caught him. Is it fair? Definitely not, but that's probably why they caught him. And if you look at his last fight versus Buchetta, Buchetta had a really bad performance. People were really high on him. They thought he'd be good or could be good. And then in the fight against Buday, he looked really bad, but Buday honestly looked equally as bad or maybe a little better, but not a great performance from him either. So, yeah. But, yeah. This week has been so far the content goes. No one's excited. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, content's not great. I mean, I have I don't know if you guys saw it. I guess I'll plug myself quickly. I posted a video on Monday about weight cutting. Posted a video yesterday about the heavyweight division, just kind of complaining. It's part of my new series. I have a complaining series. If you guys are interested. But tomorrow, I guess a little sneak peek, I will have a video coming out about the Rubovich fight. So, that's really the only video I have this week coming out about this specific card. Usually I talk about the card, the upcoming week's card a little bit more, but for this card, it's just, there's really just no interest for the card at all. And I think there's personally some fun fights, but for the most part, it's not amazing. And it is an Apex card. So I think this week people are kind of just taking the day off essentially. Or taking the week off essentially. So yeah, not that much news. We're kind of grasping at straws. The what's this called? The Ruffy and BSD announcement was good, but yeah, outside of that, not much news. Excellent graphics on your page, brother. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. I've noticed that for like a lot of MMA pages, they kind of all have the same sort of thumbnail, and I guess it's working. But it's kind of like this video, like the Why I Was Right, Max Holloway. It's like just like a white background, and like a little bit more simplistic, I think. So yeah, so we decided to make, just have a different style, and when you see like this kind of red background, you kind of know it's a juicy MMA. If you know me, obviously my page is not that big, but I guess you kind of know. So that's the reasoning for why I did that. But yeah, we needed a charisma tier list. Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one. Yeah, maybe we could do that one for tomorrow. A little tier list for tomorrow. Friday night tier lists. We could do a charisma one. I'll write that down. Charisma tier list. Connor's going at the top. Prime Connor list. Tier list ideas. I got everything written down here. Charisma. All right. Locked in. We're locked in for tomorrow, 3:05. Be sure to check in if you're free. We'll do it. But yeah. Outside of that, just not much, honestly. Unfortunately. I'm just trying to scan through, see if we see anything at all. It doesn't seem like it is. But yeah. Oh, this is what Joshua was talking about before. The unks still putting on. Well, let me do this. Let's get this in here. Do that. There you go. Yeah, these guys are all winning. A lot of older guys are beating a lot of the younger guys. Actually, I think the UFC is not happy with this at all. Just because usually what they like to do, they've been doing this forever and it's been successful for them. But they'll have like a young up and coming prospect. They'll put him up against an older guy, and of course they want him to beat the older guy and finish the older guy so they can build his name and push him forward, add new blood to the rankings, add another potential contender. That's usually their model. for these younger prospects, and they kind of utilize some of the bigger names that are older at this point to go up against them. But this year, it really has not been working out, as all these guys on this list have had victories over younger fighters. I'm still mad they robbed Wonderboy. Wonderboy's another guy. It's not even on here. Yeah, they definitely did rob Wonderboy. I thought it was such a weird thing because Wonderboy I thought was almost certainly winning the fight. Actually, he definitely was winning the fight. He was landing a lot of good shots. He even hurt his opponent as well in that fight. And yeah, I mean, listen, he threw a kick and it was checked and it was busted all up. His shin was, but he was still throwing kicks in that third round. And I feel like he just did more. I know he was, held alongside the cage for a majority of that third round, I believe. But still, like when they were at space, the damage was certainly in the favor of Wonderboy. And I talk about this all the time, but when you're judging a fight, if there's not much going on in the fight, the damage trumps all. If Wonderboy, let's just say a random fighter, lands a big shot or a medium shot in the beginning of the first round, or a couple medium shots in the beginning of the first round, and his opponent puts him alongside the cage and gets control time alongside the cage, the guy who landed the more shots in the beginning of the round or landed more damage wins the round, or should win the round. But we see it all the time in the UFC. The Wonderboy fight is not the only example. We see it all the time where, if a guy has more control time than his opponent, some judges will give the round to the guy with more control time, but that's not really how fights are supposed to be judged. I heard like not too long ago they were making a change, or they were putting more of an emphasis on damage than it already was. But I don't know. Sometimes you still see results where judges favor guys that pressure, or not pressure, that have more control time alongside the cage or on the ground, more than guys that land big damage. And I talked about this a lot, but I think that fight with when Jalen Turner was fighting not too long ago against Gamrot, I thought Jalen Turner probably should have won the fight. Not saying Jalen Turner's an amazing fighter. Obviously, at this point, he's retired. But if you watch the fight back, Turner was able to drop him, I believe, like 2, maybe even 3 times in 2 separate rounds. I think it was twice. He dropped him twice in 2 separate rounds. But if you look back and watch the fight, obviously he lost the round, or he lost the fight, because they thought that Gamrot got takedowns and had more pressure, had more control time, so they decided to give him the round. But if you go by the judges' scoring criteria, or what it should be, I think Gamrot should have lost the fight, because he got dropped twice in 2 separate rounds, and those were obviously the most damage in those few rounds. But that's a little bit of a rant about judging. But yeah, and yeah, the Wonderboy one was equally, or maybe even worse, probably even worse than the other fight. So yeah, judging is not great. I've talked about it a lot. I'm personally not too happy about the judging. Another factor that should be considered when all things are equal is moving forward. Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I'm not 100% sure about, but I think it is. Like, if literally nothing happens, but one guy's on the front foot and the guy's backing up and his opponent's backing up the whole time, I'm assuming they'll give it to the guy who's pressuring. But this is how the criteria should go. Damage, number 1. Number 2 should be control time, and then number 3 should be pressure. That's how it should go. But damage is so much more important than the next tier in control time, that it doesn't even matter. As I said, if you land one big shot or a couple big shots, that's way more impactful and would win you the round, or should win you the round, even if your opponent has, let's say, 4 minutes of control time. It really shouldn't matter. But I just feel like judges don't always judge like that. But yeah, that's my rant on that. I should do more complaining videos. I started my complaining list. My complaining what's it called? My complaining series not too long ago. You guys can see it on my main page if you want to check it out. But we got 4 videos already. A lot more to come. A lot of complaining from Juicy MMA. But yeah. But yeah, not that much else, to be honest. So So yeah, if you guys have any last second questions, be sure to let me know. I will certainly be sure to answer them. But if not, I think I may hop off stream at this point. It's been really fun talking to you boys. Of course, I apologize. I know I missed a day yesterday. I just came home a little bit too late yesterday, so I wasn't able to stream. But tomorrow I will be on stream, normal schedule. And we'll talk about some MMA. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the stream. I'll see you guys tomorrow for a stream at 8 p.m. There'll be another video coming out tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time, about Ribovich. So be sure to check that out as well. And until tomorrow, I'll see you. I'll see you boys tomorrow. Peace out, man. Peace out, Joshua. Peace out, 305. Peace out. Well, I'll answer your question last second because I'm here. Remember when you guys? Yeah, I do. I actually do. Oh man. Yes, unfortunately. But anyways, I'll see you boys tomorrow. Peace out, Pencil Shavings 305, Joshua, everybody else in the stream. I'll see you boys tomorrow.